All right, welcome back to the Shop Class Podcast. Tonight we got a special guest. We have a Harbor Freight Tools for Schools Award winner. This is, honoring excellent programs and teachers in their shop class. Jeff Bertke. I think I said it right.
Yep, you got it right.
All right, cool. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully.
Thanks for joining us. And we'll just start right in with the first question I ask every guest, which is, did you have shop class growing up?
I did. It was one of the best classes I ever had. That kind of actually stirred me into the trade that I'm doing now. My former teacher actually ended up being a teacher I taught alongside then when I got into the trade, when I started teaching. So that's
okay.
Yeah, he taught for the same district, and then he was a sub, and when I was teaching, he was subbing. So I was able to help him in his classroom, and kind of turned into a real neat thing.
That is awesome. And what a cool thing. So you worked in the field for a bit, and then you kind of got someone kind of pulled you into the teaching world, right?
Yeah, I worked in the field for about 12 years as an electrician. And then my former teacher reached out to me and said he was going to be retiring in a couple of years and thought I might be a good asset and be willing to take his spot. So I took the plunge and went in and started out being his lab aide until we went through that transitional time.
So I think that's actually an important example. I've always thought that teachers, not just shop teachers, but teachers should overlap each other, because I always found it funny that you could have a 40-year teacher, and we know that some teachers 40 years doesn't mean excellence. It might just mean 40 years. But you have a teacher who has 40 years experience, and then if they retire, that's when the district will get a new teacher, and then that teacher has no training except for maybe college, but maybe that's just theory. So I always thought they should have an overlap. So how did you overlap? Was that voluntary, or is that part of the program in your school?
So the way it used to work was we had two teacher programs. So you had a teacher that taught juniors and a teacher that taught seniors. When I moved in, we switched to a teacher and then an aide position. So he would run the class and manage, and then I'd be floating around helping with safety, helping kids with projects, and we're able to get that more one-on-one, keep a safer shop environment that way. So then when he retired, then I took over and got my own aide, and we kind of grew it from there.
Yeah, that's the best way. I mean, I could use another person in my classroom. That'd be great. And then they would learn. I mean, officially I have 10 years until I've hit my 25, but they should start somebody in there. Who knows? Because what if we need to add another teacher? Do you guys, anybody else in here have any aides with them?
No. So Jeff, you have an aide the entire time. Like it's you and another teacher all the time.
Yeah, it kind of works out pretty well. It gives us a lot of opportunities. I know it's kind of a weird concept, but I'm not from a traditional comprehensive high school either. I'm from a vocational school. So we run a little bit differently. But we go out doing different projects. We do things around the school building. We wire up projects for the school, like legitimate permitted projects. So it gives me the opportunity to take a group and go do a project and have somebody else with the other group. And it also just gives us more that one-on-one time to get these kids ready to get out into the trade.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Like, I'm on, like I said, Ron told you I was on the job. I'm on a job site with 15 students every day, and having an extra set of eyes would be awesome. And
15 is about what we get, what we end up with individually. I get about 30 in my program.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If it was 30, you'd have to have another person.
Yeah.
There's no way. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. And then even like, I understand if the district, let's say they're strapped or whatever for money for teachers and whatnot. But if you think about it, man, yeah, there's got to be a way to afford that, because if you think about it, when you go and get that new teacher and you got to pay them a full salary, but they have no experience, that's can't be better than having the overlap for at least a few years, So I think that the district, if any supervisors listening to this, yeah, that's advisable, because it's safer for the kids and for the training. You don't want I made so many mistakes when I was a new teacher.
Mhm.
And I was lucky that the guy next door was a woodshop teacher that had 40 years experience. So he would come over and check on me, or I would go see him about stuff. But without that, I'd be lost, That I don't know if I would have made it those first couple of years. It's tough to. It's an urban neighborhood, and we were doing automotive, so it's kind of like, can you imagine without any I had no teacher training. It's crazy.
Now,
Yeah,
Jeff.
Matt.
Oh, Jeff, do you have a certification? What is your actual certificate in? Like a vocational teacher,
Yes.
or?
So I've got I'm set up at the state of Ohio to teach the electrical trades. Like, it's a specific category. So anything related to the electrical trade, I can teach, but it's different from the traditional shop teachers that kind of had a big, broader umbrella. So there's still quite a bit of things that fall under my umbrella, but it's not as broad. So it's a narrower scope where I'm at with what I'm doing. But we've got 25 different programs at my school, running through about 1,000 kids. So quite a setup here.
25 different programs?
Yes. And
is it like we have a county trade school?
That's probably more what you're thinking then. So we have everything ranging from medical to cosmetology, veterinarian, HVAC.
That's great.
Culinary. I mean, we've got just a ton of good quality programs.
And you have 30 kids in a class at one time?
Yeah, I usually run. It depends on the year, and like the last 2 years, we kind of transitioned a little bit with the aide position. So my aide, I got one aide for the morning group, and then he goes and teaches another class in the afternoon, a certification class to teach kids how to run the heavy equipment or the scissor lifts and boom lifts and things like that. So that way he can kind of justify being there and getting a little bit more pay for that time. And then I've got a different aide in the afternoon. So because I'm switching aides, we kind of cut my program down just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just sharing the website of what you got here. Is this it right here?
Yeah. So I've ranged in the last 5 years anywhere from 30 kids to this year we're sitting at 26. I had a waiting list coming in, but we just capped it at that just because sometimes that's all you can do.
Yeah, this is great. So now these kids are then bussed in from different towns because they chose to do this, right?
Yeah, we have 14 different feeder schools from, I think it's far away, it's about 45 minutes that come in. They bus them in the morning. I get them like 2.5 hours during the day. They have a lunch in there, and then they have academics for like 2.5 hours. So they get everything under one roof and then get shipped back.
Oh, okay. And then, so some of these kids, like let's say these schools they're coming from, I find that locally they're worried about losing these types of kids. So even though, like, I don't know, like I'm old enough to remember that trade school was like the bad kid place in the 90s. But then that is so funny because that flipped. Now you have to test in New Jersey to get into these places because these county tech schools were the only places where they invested in equipment and technology, where the other schools got rid of them. So they're all playing catch up with this new word STEM. But so now, right, exactly. Yeah. So my, how the pendulum swung. But anyway, so these schools are now trying to compete and not lose these students. What is the situation over there? Are they worried about losing the students, or maybe that you wouldn't know that from your side because you're taking them?
No, we get some of that with them worried about losing. And we kind of had to fight that fight over the last, I've been there 10 years now, 11 years. We had to fight that about 5 years ago and kind of bypass the traditional counselor system and go directly to the parents and to the community, because they sign up for our program. And with them signing up like that, it kind of eliminates that "I didn't even know you guys existed" mentality. And they're buying in because they're seeing the need in the communities too.
Yeah.
So they're kind of now getting behind us, but it was a kind of a good uphill battle we had to climb for a couple of years there.
That's a really good idea. Directly to the parents. Why not? Because then what's happening is that, the parents get a real chance to see they can make a choice, maybe they just want a kid to do academics and sports or whatever.
Yeah.
And so are you also doing job placement, or do you have a relationship with that's kind of tough to do, but do you have a relationship with like the local, possible jobs?
Yes, we actually do that really well. We have an apprenticeship coordinator, and we're one of just a handful of schools in the state that are pre-apprenticeship authorized through the state of Ohio and the Department of Labor. So our kids come into me junior year, and then we've got the majority of them out working senior year on a 2-week rotation. So they go out working 2 weeks, getting paid, and then come back to me 2 weeks. Our apprentices last year, we figured made, I think it was around $1.5 million between the apprentices that our school sent out just over their senior year.
Is this it right here? Did I find the right spot?
That's our main homepage. Yes.
So if you're an employer, you click here and you could, I'm guessing, sign up.
Yeah, we've got a job board that they can sign up for. But what works even better is we have advisory committees to help establish our programs and run them. So we reach out to the businesses. Mr. Trapp there on the left is our apprenticeship coordinator. Outstanding, best guy in the state. If you look for him, you'd probably see him out speaking too. He goes nationally to different conferences and speaks on what he does and what we do. Growing the apprenticeship program from about 20 kids to now we're reaching 100 kids that go out doing this apprenticeship and meeting those high standards that we have for them.
I'd be interested to talk to Tony Trapp in the future, because I think something that's lacking from my program is community involvement with the business owners. And we had a manufacturing career, someone who retired from manufacturing of like 40 years. And that's what she advised us to do. She said, you got to get an advisory committee of your local business owners. And then this way you're working on job placement and whatnot. Now, we don't have an entire, coordinator position, but it's still good to reach out. Because I do it like piecemeal. So like I have a relationship with the recruiter from Tesla. So I've placed 2 kids there. And then there's also a printing place close by, and there's some other bicycle shops and whatnot. But it's just sort of piecemeal, but we don't have like a program.
And that's how we kind of started, and we used to do it that way. But we reach out to all the businesses that would potentially hire our kids, got them on the advisory committee. And then as that process was going, Tony then now is kind of our go-to guy. So he'll go out and he works with the workforce partnership in the area. And he reaches out to the local businesses. So we kind of have one point of contact, and we funnel between us, him, and the businesses. We all have that kind of triangle relationship there.
Yeah. That's
so
good.
I have 15 or 20 good employers on my advisory committee that advise my program on what they're seeing, what we need, how to modify curriculum, all those things.
And do you guys do you guys have advisory committees working with the local business owners? I think kind of you guys are similar to me, is that you're just sort of doing it yourself, right? Yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't have one. I think they had one kind of in the past, I don't know. I kind of go back and forth. Like it's nice not having. It's nice to be able just to wake up in the morning, do what you need to do, and do it. At the same time, like I wouldn't hate having one for reasons Jeff's given and some other people that we've had on here have talked about too. Like now, I have a group of professionals that are my unofficial advisory board that my network of people that I get a hold of often, and they're everything from local to across the nation. So I have an unofficial one, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I can't. I don't know. I don't. It's one. I guess right now I have so many things going on. It's one more thing I'd have to do at the moment. So
our advisory, our board only meets twice a year, at a minimum, and then everything else is just like your little local groups. You just give them a phone call and say, "Hey, I need this," or they say, "Hey, I've got some extra of this. Can I ship it your way?" And we just kind of work together for the betterment of what we're doing. We just pull them all together twice a year just to kind of update them as a bulk. Here's where we're at and here's what we're looking at. So it's really not overly burdensome with what we do. I mean,
gotcha. See, and for me, that would probably be easy for me to do because, like I said, I'm doing that as we speak. You have your network. We just never officially. I always joke around with them, tell them they're my unofficial board and the pay sucks, but they'll get a pat on the back, or I'll buy them a beer sometime when I see them out.
With Ohio, I think it works a little bit different though, or it might. I mean, when we're dealing with the Perkins funding, part of that is a requirement that we have advisory boards, advisory committees to be able to receive that Perkins funding.
Interesting. Cool. All right. Now, you want to tell us how you got started with the with Harbor Freight?
All right. So with the Harbor Freight, that was actually one of those things that popped up, and I was thinking for a long time, I need to do that. I feel we run an excellent program here, and we've been doing it for a lot of years. We do a lot of community projects, a lot of outreach, and we work with the kids and grow them in a lot of different ways. So I thought, why not share our story? I tried it a couple years, and like Matt was saying, it's just one more thing. Finally, I just sat down one day and I just let it all come out. I think it was about a 7-hour process of just filling out that first round of the application, but it just let it come out, let it sit a day, reviewed it and said, good enough, send it in, because it was me that, just down to what I did. I was just sharing my story. Highly recommend anybody else doing the same thing. Just get yourself out there and share your story, for better or for worse. I didn't go into it expecting to win the prize, but I did want to share that I've done stuff like this before, and I kind of got an idea of what it takes to share the story, and to get the name out there like they want. So we do a ton of good things. So I just went for it.
That's awesome. And so, I know that they do this surprise, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I think it's actually kind of funny that they do that. Like, it's not there. It seems like they're having fun with this as well. Like it's not just the money, it's the excitement and the support of the shop classes. So there's an actual video of you getting surprised that I found on their website.
Yeah. So let me preface this real quick before we start it. So I kind of had a feeling something might have been up that day, but they just said, hey, we want to come in. We're going to take some footage of your lab. And we do this every so often anyway, just, working with students. So I wore my Skills USA shirt because I work heavily with our Skills USA through the state of Ohio. So I was like, okay, let me do this. And this is how it turned out.
All right. So they got you. They're like, yeah, we're having video cameras come in. Yeah, taking photos. right about here, you're like, what is happening, right?
Yeah. When I'm working with a student, all of a sudden I turn around, it's like the Publishers Clearinghouse thought where, they're running in at you with cameras and trying to just take it all in and process it.
Wow. That's amazing.
So you're one of the 3 big winners for this.
Correct.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was scared to hit send.
Don't be
That is
afraid to hit
awesome.
send. I'm sure
Yeah,
you
I
guys
finally made it on the finalist list this year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool, man. Wait, I feel like I had some other photos. Oh, I guess not. But so now, like, do you have a plan for what you want to do with the money? Not the personal part, but I mean, you're probably gonna buy a jet ski or something like that. But anyway, no.
Yeah, we're still working through that anyway. But honestly, not real in depth. I mean, I went into this just to try to get the exposure, just to share what we're doing out there with everybody. And just to tell my story, because I feel like it's a good one and I want to get it out there. So when I won the 100,000, it was just like, oh crap, crap and good, like, shoot, what are we gonna do with this? My goal was always what can I do to help my kids and help the kids? I say kids because that's what they turn into, my students.
Yep.
So my thought process is, what are these roadblocks from these guys getting into the program or getting out into the industry? What are some things that are tripping them up? So we're looking at some ways to put tools in the hands of the kids. Looking at how can we work with them with transportation needs, just trying to come up with ways that we can help support the kids coming in here. I'd love to see the kids all coming in and they got their tool set bought for them, because right now they all provide their own tools. So if we can, that's $400 before they decide to come into my program and even know if they want to do it. Yeah, it's huge.
Wow.
So if we can get some tools in their hands, and that might free up some money that they can then use to help get their driver's license or pay for uniforms or whatever those other roadblocks might be, keeping it from getting in. That's kind of my goal.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even know what to do. I would think about equipment, and I would think about all these different things, how to help the students. But yeah, it's not easy, but probably the best part would be that I don't think you need the 3-bid system. Like, I don't know if you have to wait for money. I can only order once a year. I can't just draw it off an account. So, if something comes up, you could just get it. You could kind of freestyle a little bit, probably.
Yep.
Yeah, which is real nice. That's cool. Now, the process you went through, everyone says that it's a pretty lengthy process, and you have to answer these questions and prompts. You spent a lot of time working on the narration.
It was, like you said, a pretty lengthy process. My first round application, I think I had 7 or 8 hours in it. But really, just to think about it and reflect on it, it was a good use of my time, because it helped. It's helping me become a better teacher. So there was some times in there where you had some videos that you had to watch, reflect on how would you use that in your classroom? How would this help you? So there was good reflection. And then the second round application was only, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours probably. So it wasn't a ton of time. I mean, I know we're always busy, but you can always carve out the time when you find something you want to do anyway. So that's kind of what I did. I just found the time and I carved it out.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing too, Jeff, I don't know how many times you've applied, but so this year is my second time, and I was fortunate enough to be in the finalists. But once you do it the first time, and I was kind of like you, the first year I came across, I found out about it like a week before it was due, and I started going into it. I was like, "There's no way I can do this. Not enough time." The so the next year I was ready for it. So that would have been 2020 application. And it was kind of that same thing. I just sat down, I filled them out. Matthew Barbachek, who helped Ron start the podcast and is a winner of this, he kind of proofread it and gave me advice because I had to cut so much out.
Mhm.
And then when you do it the next year, like the first 4 questions are all the same things. All you do is go through and, like, for me, I updated the stats in it, kind of tweaked it. So once you get through the first big submission, the next year, I mean, they could change it next year, I don't know. But like, I think the first 4 questions were exactly the same. So I just copy paste from my head last year, updated and refined that. So that took maybe, I don't know, 30 minutes to an hour, just making sure I had that part right. And then, you got your new modules and stuff. So that's one thing for people listening. Once you do it once, then unless they change some of the questions, and most of the questions that are the same are pretty much about you, like as a person, or about getting and teaching and stuff about your class. So that part actually becomes a lot easier on your time frame compared to that very first one. But yeah, I'm like you said, you write it up, you sit on it for a few days. It's like writing a term paper for college, a college course.
I'm going to try it for next year. I keep saying that, and I never do it.
That would be my recommendation. Just give yourself that time. If you know you're worthy because of what you're doing out there, let your story show. You can carve out that time to plan for your week. Well, carve out that time. You can get the app, you can probably find the questions out there right now and get your basis done this summer when you got free time.
Oh, you mean next year's already has the questions up?
I don't know if they do or not, but I'm saying if you're looking around, the questions, like you said, start thinking about the process ahead of time.
Yeah.
Fill it in little increments. I applied. This is my 3rd time officially applying. This was the first time I actually completed the whole application. I was like Matt, where I got things started and then got busy because that's springtime of the year. I work heavily with Skillsusa, and that's when we have our state conference. We have a regional conference. All that stuff goes on at that time. So plus you're getting the kids placed and everything's on your plate. But I just carved out the time and made it happen.
That's awesome. And also, I kind of like this idea that it's not just the prize and it's not just what you could do to help your students, but also it's like a reflection of your teaching. You basically get to think about your process. And every person that's done it, whether they win or get passed to another year, they always say it was worth it. Everyone says it's worth it.
Well, shoot, if you win, I mean, 8 hours. Let's say it's 10 hours. You hit the 100,000. That's $10,000 an hour. That's a good rate.
Yeah.
Think of it that way.
There you go.
That's cool. Awesome. I think I would put a lift in my shop. We have a scissor lift. We don't have an actual post lift.
Okay.
The ceiling's kind of low though. Can you tell me a little bit about Skillsusa? I always hear about it. I really don't know much about it.
All right. So Skillsusa is a student-led organization. It's a partnership between students and industry. And our goal in Skillsusa is to help the students become world-class leaders, workers, and American citizens. We want to get that next generation of the right kid out there. And I'm actually tomorrow bringing 35 kids over to Columbus for leadership training. So we're having our fall conference with Ohio and give them that experience. It's those soft skills that businesses say the students are lacking. We're getting those opportunities for those students to work on those soft skills to help them get those job interview skills. We've got some financial management stuff they can go through. And
so it's not just, I thought it was like a competition of some kind. So it's not just
a small part of what we do. We got a leadership component that we try to integrate into the classroom. And then we have which you're seeing here is our Skillsusa Framework. So in the classroom, we try to work on all these integrity, work ethic, professionalism, the personal skills, the workplace skills, the technical skills. So we can integrate that into the classroom, into our curriculum, and work on those skills. And then we have a contest side of things as well. So our kids can then go on local contest, regional contest, state contest, and on to nationals. So again, you're growing those kids all the way around. And I've had kids that went to nationals with leadership contests, and I've had kids that went to nationals in electrical contest.
Nice. That's awesome. And is this in every state?
Every state, yep. And even in Puerto Rico and Guam as well.
Huh. No kidding.
That's unfortunately we're one of those lesser known secrets out there. You know, we're hidden, but we're working on getting our name out there. We partner with a lot of big companies nationwide, and we partner with a lot of big companies locally, you know, around the state.
Yeah. Cool. Does anybody else in here do Skills USA?
No, I know our local, boat tech center participates in skills. The way I understand it, it's kind of like the FFA of trades. And I know, some ag stuff is in Skills USA as well, but, that's what maybe the general population or public would know more about, as far as relating the two. It's,
Yep.
It's the industrial version of FFA.
Okay. Interesting. So let's say you got involved. I mean, I don't know even a thing about it. So let's say you get involved. You're basically you're joining so that you could become part of these conferences, but there's training, and then there's also like competitions. It's kind of what happens, right?
Yes. Yep.
And then the students. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say there's curriculum pieces you can buy that they develop that you can utilize in the classroom, as well as you're building that network of teachers as well. So kind of like what you got going on here by me being an advisor, going to advisor trainings and getting to the conferences. I now have a network of teachers around the state and around the country that do what I do to help grow us as well, help us all get better.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, especially if you're a shop teacher, I think it's super important to connect. It's unbelievable, because you kind of like, you're sort of got your own little program, and there's a lot of flexibility. If you're doing, let's say, the general shop teacher thing, you might have an extraordinary program, or you might have a general program, or whatever it is. But unless you talk with the other shop teachers, I'm not sure how you can grow, because you're not learning about the latest trend or latest thing. Not that you got to keep up with the trends. I'm just saying, it's good to connect. I've learned so much from talking to these guys, and we've had so many different guests that at least I kind of have an overview of what's possible, and I see where I fit in the whole puzzle piece. So that's why that seems like a good idea. Skills USA. That's pretty cool. Nice.
So at our school, we have about 700 members out of our 1,000. And then we work out of those, and we build a lot of leadership locally. So, just developing a good local set of student leaders really helps take things to a higher level too. Our school was recognized 5 out of the last 7 years as a top school in the nation, model of excellence. So we were in the top 24 nationwide.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of good things going on.
Awesome. So let's get into what you teach exactly. So you're doing, are you doing residential building electrical, or is it commercial, or is it both, or what would you be doing?
Pretty broad. I do residential electrical with my juniors for about half a year. And then I do commercial electric for the rest of the junior year. And we throw projects in there as well. And then senior year is kind of a blend between commercial, industrial, and then projects, like community projects.
See, this is pretty awesome, because even though the electrical grid was created by Edison like 100 years ago. You know,
Mhm.
I don't think it stopped growing. It's unbelievable the expansiveness of it, especially with new things happening. Like there's going to be now battery backup systems and solar systems and electrical like your whole parking lot has to be a charging station for the cars. So it's just, and then with now all the houses have even like the Wi-Fi and whatnot. So things are like really growing in that field. It doesn't seem to end.
Yeah, and that's a very positive outlook on the career field. So it helps us with recruitment as well. But we dabble in a lot of those different areas, you know, with the smart homes and computer technology stuff. Because most of the lighting systems that we put in businesses now on larger scales, schools, things like that, are ran off computer networks. So we got to teach them how to run the network cable and how to do some of the basic programming.
Interesting. So it's not just, oh, hey, the kid's going to learn how to run copper and put it into a box. That's maybe just one piece of the puzzle. Now you're talking about LED control system, computer controlled lighting, and then also you think about the as far as like temperature control. You walk out of your house, you're like, oh wait, I forgot to turn off the heat. Click, you know,
Yep.
on your phone. So you do deal with stuff like that?
Yeah, we kind of show the whole broad range of what you can do as an electrician. And it goes from, you know, everything from low voltage to residential, commercial, industrial, fire alarm. And then we get guys that go into our high voltage area as well. So our adult division has a high voltage lineman program.
Oh,
So I usually have some kids that move that direction. I've got kids that go onto the engineering side and go to college as well then. So
awesome.
become electrical engineers.
Wow. Yeah, I have a former student who works for Con Ed in New York City, and he does a kind of an interesting job where what they do is it's a utility, so they're regulated. However, they do have to try and make money. So they have to figure out what the job's going to cost. So he has to estimate the job. Let's say they're going to tear up the street and put a line, because they don't have, in New York City, there's no telephone poles. It's all underground. So they're going to tear up the street. Now they can say, okay, well, we'll tear up the street here, and we're going to put this kind of line in, and that'll save us money in 10 years from now, and they can factor it in. So he has to do all these estimates, but he has to deal with future proofing it, like weather, and there's an amazing amount of water that they have to deal with, and then also pre-existing lines that are in the street for gas and steam, so it's pretty amazing. And they're dealing with like high voltage, because then they're going to step it down later. So job estimating is a huge thing. Anyway, I'm just kind of endorsing that it's more comprehensive than probably meets the eye with people doing electrical.
Exactly.
Yeah. What
hold on,
yeah,
Ron, hold on before, so I don't forget. Well, I won't forget.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's still relative to what you guys are talking about at the moment. So I had a company talking to me about, and that's one thing. So with our house builds, we try to kind of introduce new building techniques and technologies and things like that, things that kids are going to be doing. So one of the companies is talking to me about doing all the wiring through low voltage. So it's all the LEDs, everything's just ran off Cat 5 wires. What's your take on that? Like in a residential, and it's not really so much to even necessarily. I mean, yeah, you can link it up to your smartphone, blah blah blah. You can do all that stuff, but the idea is everything is just getting rid of the copper and all the lighting, all the LED lighting. Let's say the can lights or the puck lights or the wafer lights are all going to would all be ran off the low voltage. Like what do you say is the pros and cons of doing that?
I'm excited for it, and I see it coming. My cons right now would be it's power over Ethernet is what you're really dealing with on that. There's not a lot of companies out there, so my biggest fear would be it's not out there yet. So in 5 years, 10 years, when you need replacement parts, are the new stuff going to work with the old stuff? Because you don't have that backbone, that standards aren't necessarily out there yet for it. I'm excited about it though, because we're running such energy efficient stuff. That's just making it easier and easier and cheaper. Instead of running 14 gauge wire, you're running 22 gauge. When we're looking at our resources being scarce, you're going to be saving a ton of money on what you're doing. So, and plus then you also have the networkable side of things, that now I can control this light independently from this light by just talking to it. So you can do both. You're typically able to feed power and talk to them. So I'm excited about that new thing coming up here as far as the lighting goes. We do a lot with
Because so for our
Yeah.
Hey, Matt,
go ahead, Duke.
when I turn my lights on my house, Matt, are they going to turn on as slow as my internet speed? I'll be.
Well, so this
I'll be
is
waiting a
hooked
while.
up into the internet. Like this is all. This is actually hooked up to your. So you have your own panel, and it switches over to. So we are. So what electric right now is AC, right? And then it switches to DC. Is that right, or am I backwards?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
we're AC,
so
it's
it
DC.
all, okay, so it's all like there's no internet tied to it. You could tie internet to it, but it has these little, I'm going to call them fuses. They're not fuses, but you plug them in, and that's what runs the power. And like you can do everything like while it's hot. Like you don't even have to cut the power to it. You do all this stuff to it. I'm learning more about it right now. And like I said, by trade, I'm a carpenter. Like for when it comes to electrical stuff, when it comes to the house, we call our licensed electrician, and he says, do this, this, and this, and that's how I do my electrical. So, but it all runs off Cat 5 stuff. And like I said, that's one of my biggest things is like, okay, if something goes wrong, what do we do? If something burns, goes bad, then what do we do? Where do we get the things? Now, the cool thing is the company that I'm talking to, they can turn about any LED light into like the hookup to the system. So that end of the things is nice. But I don't know. I was just, like I said, I'm really intrigued by it. I think it's really cool. In fact, I was told by our local electrician, he's dealt with houses that were built in the 70s that all the lights run off a low voltage. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So it's not new. It's like everything else is just getting better. But I know this is something that's picking up ground. And like this company's done like some major commercial buildings and everything. Like it's not a, like I said, it's not like this is a brand new thing that, only we would be doing. But at the same time, we'd probably be the only house in this town. And like the electrician said, he goes, if the homeowner calls me, he goes, I'm telling them to call Bloomquist. I was like, so it's somewhat bad, So I don't know. Like I said, I'm very intrigued. I think it's really cool. I see the ease in it and all this stuff. And the other thing too, their system that you can hook it up to like a single solar panel and with a battery and stuff. So like if your power goes out, you literally have battery, you have power, or you have lights anyway for probably at least another day. So, but yeah, it's technically this wouldn't be the internet though, but you could hook it up to obviously they could all be hooked up to Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I was gonna say PoE isn't new. We've used it for a lot of years running camera systems, and that's very handy because then you don't have to run a separate power. It's all digital, versus the old analog stuff. So it's just, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be integrating some of my class next year. Just locally, it's not out enough yet for me to really feel comfortable. I'm going to a big electrical expo in March next year, and I'm sure they'll have a lot more out about it at that point. And like you said, it's been around. It's just our part of the world. In Ohio, we haven't seen it yet, so I don't have that comfort level with it yet.
I'm in Illinois. Midwest is late to everything.
Nice. Yeah, this is cool. I mean, basically, I think the older low voltage that you might be talking about is when they run a transformer to get it from, it's a
Yeah.
little box. And then
old-
what's
Yeah,
nice
that's-
is
yeah.
you could touch the line because it's running 12 volts. It's just like your car. It's just not enough voltage to jump through your skin, is my understanding. Like you could touch a car battery. I mean, don't go, don't get me wrong, don't put your hands in water and then touch the car battery. I'm sure that might do something, but it's like that 9-volt battery on your tongue, but it's safe. And you could, and it was like designer. So you could like run these bare lines and then they hook on these little halogens, but those halogens get super hot. That's a waste. Heat is a loss. So, but if you could do low voltage over these, relatively lightweight cable lines, but I guess it just doesn't take that much power to run the LED lights now. So you don't need heavy copper any longer.
Exactly.
Wow. That's a big thing coming up, I guess.
Well, and with
Yeah.
copper prices being so high, it's the wire cost offset. Obviously, some of the other equipment may wipe that offset off anyway. But I mean, for me, I could get Cat 5 for free, like around here. That wouldn't be even an issue. But the other equipment that comes with it, pretty much, I think, is going to wipe out the offset there. So
That's awesome. Now, how much can you run on a Cat 5 cable before you got to get another cable? So, like, how many amps can you really put on there?
You're not typically talking amps, you're talking watts of power.
Okay.
And that's what he's kind of talking about with the equipment. The equipment's going to monitor how much is on there and only allow so much to flow on there until it maxes it out. And then the whole device is only going to be good for X amount, whatever you decide to buy it for.
Okay.
50 watts or 100 watts or whatever.
Oh, it's like nothing.
Yeah, you're talking, next to nothing. I mean, the LED bulb, you're talking 13 watts. So you look around how many bulbs you got in your house or in your room, add them up. You're not talking a whole lot.
Yeah, it's like nothing. I think it's amazing. I've switched a lot. Most of the lighting in my house, I switched to LED because I like the white brightness of it, and then also just reduce the bill. And anytime you got heat, you're just paying to heat the air. So that's pretty cool. And then what about the Internet of Things, as far as heating systems and cooling systems, where you communicate with the with your phone and whatnot? What's that called?
When you're dealing with a smart home, or like you said, the Internet of Things, that's kind of my fun. I like to play with all that new technology, and we integrate some of that stuff in the classroom as well. The hard part with that, again, is you either need to go with a reputable system that's been out there and proven. If you don't do that, then all these little companies, it seems like they go belly up, and now all of a sudden you got stuff that's not supported anymore. So that's the harder part, but it's kind of nice to be able to, like you said, sit at my smartphone and open up my garage door, close my garage door, or turn my Christmas tree lights on, from wherever, or just integrating all those little things. It's getting easier and easier.
Now, is that kind of like similar to the Ring system and these new like doors that lock themselves and whatnot?
Yeah, it's tying all that technology together.
Oh my God, this is a dog feeder. Oh my God, what is going on here? This is like Doc Brown right here.
I was getting ready to say Back to the Future.
Yeah. That was way ahead of its time. It's so funny.
And that's the kind of stuff that some of our high school kids work on and do projects like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've got a lot of satellite programs, and they work with some of those microcontrollers, the Arduinos and the Raspberry Pis, and integrate that stuff. We got a ton of 3D printers. My wife actually runs a STEM class at one of the local schools as a satellite of our school. So she comes across about 150 kids a day, teaching robotics and 3D printing and engineering concepts.
That's great. Have you ever heard of this company called Sense? It's an amp meter clamp on for your box.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think of this thing? Or
It's
let's talk about what it is first.
So I don't know a ton about it because I haven't used it yet. But essentially, from what I'm understanding, it's basically you've got one. I'll let you talk about it, Matthew.
Oh my God, Matt's got it. You got it on your home?
So, okay, you know how I've talked about, the idea of possibly putting the solar panels stuff on the mobile classroom.
Right.
Schneider Electric?
Yes.
Is the ones who I've developed Sense, I believe. And so I'm real good friends with one of the dealers here locally. So they hooked us up with like all kinds of free stuff for the last house with the breaker panel and all the dual function breakers and all that stuff. And they also gave us one of these for free, the monitoring system. And so I didn't end up putting it in the house because it's one of those things where I was going to, but then I was kind of waiting to see who bought it, and it would end up being an older couple, and they weren't they didn't have any interest in that kind of stuff. So we've been talking about monitoring the usage on the job site with the mobile classroom and everything. So I put it in there. Now we're waiting. We haven't hooked up the internet to the mobile classroom yet, just because we have to get our plumbing, our sewer line put in first, so we don't go over our fiber optic. You have to cut our fiber optic line, and so I'm just kind of waiting to get the internet hooked up to the mobile classroom so I can start. I have it hooked up there. It may be collecting the data as we speak. I just have no way of seeing the data yet, because it has to work through the Wi-Fi or whatever. But yeah, it's just this little box that you put they come with these clamps that go around your main lines coming into your feed lines coming into your breaker box. And I guess the way it works, it picks up on, I want to say, I don't know if it's vibrations per se. I'm not sure. It's something with the current, or maybe the
frequency.
Frequency,
But
yeah,
you
there's
have
the word.
to
That's what
then,
I'm looking for.
like, every device has its own wave or noise. This is my rudimentary understanding. But then you then have to, as the user, help identify it. Jeff, is this kind of what goes on?
And say I didn't dive into it a lot, but I've seen other things like this that you're basically just monitoring your power usage for the individual, either your whole house or the individual devices. So then you can determine what makes sense to save money, or, when you're looking at doing something bigger like solar or generator, you got an idea of what you actually need. But like I said, I haven't dove deep into this one yet at all.
Gotcha. Yeah, a friend of mine, the only reason I pulled this up is because I got a friend who's very, very into like what his house is using. And he has, went through the steps to like identify every device. So he'll know what's going on as far as like, if your blender is on, or if you left something on, you'll know right away.
Okay. I might have to look into that more then.
Yeah, it's
that
cool.
sounds really awesome.
Oh yeah. I don't think it doesn't control anything though. It's just monitoring.
Sure.
But however, I'm going to take a wild guess. If you got your lights and some equipment on these Cat 5 cables, and they're individually routed back, maybe to, like, if you had a router and then you have some sort of smart device on there, you probably could turn on and off everything from there once you had a computer on there. Is that right?
Yeah, you can do it right through your smartphone from different apps.
That is so
already.
cool. So it's not like a relay at the light switch. It's that the whole line is routed, but every single one is like a home run, or no?
just depends on how you set things up. You can get remote breakers that you can control remotely. Typically, right now, it's done at the device level, though. So I would put a special receptacle in or a special light switch in that I could then control from my app to turn them off, turn them on, program scenes, even like the Philips lighting system. I use that in my kids' room. So I got scenes programmed in. So in the morning, the lights will start to come on and go up to fuller brightness and to help wake up. Yeah, there's a whole avenue of stuff you can do.
Wow. That's awesome. And does any of this involve Arduino at all? And I don't know if that's kind of like a wild left turn, but I was just curious.
You can, but typically no. Typically that's more your DIY or your garage, come up with a concept, let me play with it. But we do
Gotcha.
start to integrate some of that in my classroom as well before we get into the computer controls that they use on equipment and machines now. That's kind of a cheap, here's a little bit about how microprocessors work, and let's learn how to program and learn some of the commands and lay the groundwork for some of that future stuff.
Cool. All right. Now you got some photos that maybe we could see, kind of like your workshop and kind of the things you've been doing. You wanna
Sure.
run through that?
Yeah, I'll start off with my big fun here.
Okay.
So give me just a second here.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Oh, this is it. Ticker tape parade.
Yeah, I'll start
It's
with
like
the,
Times Square.
that was one of those things I found out after the fact. The PR lady had to really fight to let her do that, because it was, you're going to make such a mess. Who's going to clean that mess up? But I'm glad they did. That was pretty cool.
What are they worried about? I mean, it's just like, there's like, I guess you have a really nice shop. I mean, my shop, there's pieces, there's engine oil on the floor. Nobody would care at my place.
And my students are so good, they had it cleaned up before these guys were even out of there that day.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Oh, the
Yeah.
students were there. That must have been exciting having them there
Yeah.
as well.
Because the only person that knew about it in my lab was my lab aide.
Oh, no way. That's wild.
So he was trying to figure out how he was going to incorporate that in. We were doing a school-wide coat drive at the same time and wrapping up that morning. So with nobody telling me, I had coats coming into the classroom right at that time and trying to get them counted and get everything squared away. And he's scrambling behind the scenes trying to figure out how he's getting the stuff cleaned up without telling me what's going on. So, I mean, he walked in 20 minutes before they came in there. I had 200 coats laying on my floor that the kids were sorting through and counting.
Oh my
and
God. That's so funny.
organizing. But yeah,
Sometimes like you have a day, nothing's happening. And then there's days where it's like everything.
exactly. That was definitely one of those days. Yeah, I turned
Great.
the corner to look at this. I mean, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Who came down from the Harbor Freight to represent it?
Danny. I can't think of his last name right now.
I don't know if we've met him before. I can't remember. Some of the Harbor, we've had the director on the
Danny Corbin.
Okay.
Corwin.
Corwin. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. I think it's such a great thing. Like, Harbor Freight has really, stepped up. I mean, they are supporting all the shop teachers, and it's not just like a grant. It's a support of the teacher and the program and a celebration of what you do. I just think that's it's above and beyond just a grant.
Yeah, I think
sometimes.
I think that was the coolest thing about that whole prize and the celebration was how much attention it brought to what we do.
Yeah, like if you type your name in and your school, now there's tons of articles about it. So everybody's covering it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
So I'll go through a couple more here. So
Yeah.
it was kind of neat too. My family was able to come in. So I had my daughter here, my son in the background, able to join. My wife was down there. So that was pretty special too.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, it comes with a box.
Comes with a toolbox, and they try to get that to match your classroom. They do a lot of background research and behind the scenes try to pick one that matches what you've got. So they
Nice.
kind of match out to some of my railing I've got there.
Those boxes are pretty good. I have the same one, not the same exact one. Yours is wider, but yeah, I've bought that USJ. It's good. It works.
Yeah, I got the same one in my shop at home.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I support Harbor Freight and have for years. I like what they got.
Yeah.
And they do a lot for the schools, so it's a pretty good partnership they have.
Also, where can you go that you could get such a diverse line of stuff? I mean, the worst thing you could do is walk into Harbor Freight without a plan. Yeah, because you could walk out you could start a whole metal working facility, or you could do lawn and garden. It's like everything. Cool. So this is you getting the check.
Yep.
Oh,
And
wow. Look at that.
got my students that were there that morning. So again, they were all surprised. It was kind of a neat thing. So just for them, like they brought in ice cream and had some good snack time, and they were able to meet with some of my employers that came in to support me that day. So you can see, this wasn't just about me. It was about all of us and what we do as a class and as a school. I was glad that everybody had that support around the whole concept.
Absolutely. That's great. And wait, go back for just a second.
Sure.
Sorry. You know what's good is that you got like everybody there looks kind of stoked, they look excited to be there,
Yeah, they're all excited to be there, even if they're not showing it.
That's
on
great,
good
man.
days and bad days, he looks the same, but they all had a good time and they're all excited.
Nice.
It was kind of a really neat thing because this happened like 10 o'clock in the morning. My class goes to 11 o'clock. So about 10:30, my kids were done partying and were throwing their tools back on, getting back on their projects.
Oh, wow.
So we kind of had to pull off the projects and say, all right, it'll be okay. We'll get back on those next week. But,
Yeah.
it's neat to see them just diving back into it.
That's awesome. Cool.
So I just had a couple more pictures of that day, but then I'll show a couple of my class as well.
That's a good photo. That's a good one right there. That's like it's like, because you're going to look back years later and hope that they had some good photos of the day. That's a good one.
And we had enough people taking pictures there that I hope we got plenty of good ones. That was the hard part. What camera do I swear into? So there's another good one.
Is that a building inside the building?
Yes. So this was something I was going to bring up. My advisory committee helped me with this project. So I was at the school for about 7 years, bouncing from related classroom to related classroom. I never had my own classroom to call my own. We were one of the legacy programs. So my program has been around the school since the 70s when we started. And I never had my own classroom space. We would do it out in the shop area, or I'd borrow a science teacher's classroom when they weren't using it. And finally, every time we'd have an advisory meeting, it felt like we were always in a different room. They said, we need to get a room. We need to get you your own room. So I talked about it with my boss and kind of drew it up, and they helped push the administration, and I got kind of my dream here. So we wanted to look like an electrical trades company because that's what we're kind of selling. We're selling that professionalism to these guys.
Oh, wow. That's pretty. Oh, wait. So let me understand. So inside that building, that's inside the building, is a
That's
classroom.
my classroom. Yep, that's my classroom.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it has a sign and everything, like it's a business.
Uh-huh.
What is that called when you got the halfway up stonework?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. But you see what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, we modeled it over one of the businesses in our area.
I like it. You got
This is kind of what I'm looking for, and we found some pictures of some companies like that, and they put it out to the architects, and a little bit of support, and we got her pushed through.
this is so cool.
That was turned around in about 9-10 month window from when we talked about it till they started construction.
That's amazing.
You have any pictures inside this classroom?
I don't think I do right now because I didn't think about that ahead of time.
I of course I hit him like today. Hey, you got some photos? I should have asked him last week. Sorry
As
about
we're
that.
talking, I might be able to dig some up here in a little bit. I'll show you the other ones I got pulled up here quickly, but this was a Klein Tool project or Klein Tool award I got a couple years ago. So the whole class got to get behind it and celebrate that one. But one piece of advice I'd have to the teachers out there: share your story. Get out there in front of these companies. They're asking for people to apply. What's it going to hurt? Apply.
Yeah, good point. I didn't think about that. We have tons of Klein tools.
Because the worst thing you're doing is reflecting on your teaching.
Yeah.
If that's the worst thing you're doing, you're still becoming a better teacher. So get yourself out there. Just more opportunities to share what you do, and then help you get better and help everybody else get better.
Absolutely. And if any teachers listening or even here, like if someone wanted to, that's what we do here the point is to share the story and learn from each other. This is like very inspiring to see stuff like this. It's true. Like at least one, if you can't build a whole building, one of the walls in my shop should look like a dealership or look like some sort of research engineering facility or something like that, as an inspiration to tie together the whole thing. It's true.
And it kind of comes back to, you're going to grow yourself into what you surround yourself with. And whether that's friends or whether that's the environment you're in. So the more you treat it like the professional area it is, the more your kids are going to act that professional and grow into that professional that you're shooting for.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of that mentality we have at our school. So we're trying to push these kids to be those professionals. Like you said, the shop class of the 90s or the vocational tech of the 90s, we're kind of changing that mentality to now we're what everybody wants to come to.
This is such a great photo. It tells a lot. It's amazing that it's still hard to shake off the 90s, but I think that you guys are doing a real good job. It's, can you imagine what would we do without people that knew how to put buildings together and wire them up and everything around us? It's a built environment. It's amazing. And what I also like about this is that it's not just you. Like, let's say, you retire one day, the next person coming up who overlaps you, which is a great program, I think. You're setting them up for success. They're hitting the ground running. There's a rolling train already left the station, which is great. Rather than, kind of like, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of people can relate, but when I got the program, it was sort of like a dead car on the side of the road. I had to like restart it, get it back on the road, get it up to speed. It's like a rebuild, that's difficult. I don't recommend that, So if any teachers out there, you can pass the baton while the train's still moving. That's a much better way of keeping the program going.
I'd agree with you because I kind of came into that same thing, where I came into a program that was, it hasn't evolved or wasn't evolved over time. So it was nice to, now that we've got it evolved and we can keep that legacy going, it's kind of a neat thing.
Cool. Nice. All right. What do you got next?
So my lab setup here, we have desks that we typically work on. My juniors work with walls that we build that'll hinge down and we can hinge them up and do residential projects on those. And then up here in our mezzanine area, then we can go into bigger projects and then take that hopefully out into the community somehow to get onto something bigger and better. You know, we've worked with some remodels and worked with new construction and kind of get out there and do that stuff.
Oh, I see. You kind of have like some you got 2x4s up there, right?
Yeah,
This is
like
like a wall.
cubicle walls. I'll probably be able to see it better in a different picture coming up here, but
Okay.
And then all the banners here are companies that support us. So we like to support them. So when we have people coming through touring our facilities, they get to see the people of the community that support what we do. And again, help build that community buy-in and tie-in then.
Nice.
So we do have women in the trade as well.
That's
and we
good.
try to share that. So this was one of ours showing off her electrical panel she wired.
That's so cool. You know, it's funny. I had a fight for years to get the female students in my class, and now I've got one class where it's over 50% girls, and I got to use a megaphone to get over their voices. But we have a good time, and you know, when you give the girls a chance, they're pretty good at what they do, and I just can't believe they were left out of these opportunities for decades. It's really funny because they absolutely can do it. They can do the work, and they care about what it looks like and how it turns out. It's good that the guidance counselors are finally not filtering any longer and funneling the girls into the classes if they'd like to.
Yeah, and the businesses like that too. Like you said, that attention to detail.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting a lot less physically demanding on a lot of what we do and more mentally demanding. So to be able to have that attention to detail is huge, especially when you're getting into some of these machines and control cabinets and things like that with a ton of wires. Really makes a big difference. So yeah, you can kind of see our little mock-up rooms back here that the kids get to work on. Every year we have a sign back in the back here. You can see class. I think I'll probably have another one here in my next picture. It has class of whatever it is, 19, 20, 21. And then the kids bend the conduit to match for their year and get a sign off on the old one. And
oh, cool.
Somebody gets to take that souvenir home. So yeah, you can kind of see the whole package there and see our walls.
Oh, I get it now.
So then this is where our juniors spend most of their time. Is they'll start from scratch building smaller mock-up walls, and they build these. So they're doing the construction end. We spend time doing the measuring and cutting as we're going through our saw safety and learning that end of things. And then we build projects off of these and just develop those skills on small scale before we ever take it larger scale when you're starting to talk quantity of material and wire.
And then what do you do about material? Do you then somehow reuse it, or do you recycle it, or how do you chop it up smaller?
We reuse as much as we can. So the projects keep building on each other, but there's parts of the project that only need small pieces of wire and some that need bigger. So they might be able to reuse this wire from here and use it over here now.
Gotcha.
When it all gets to the end of the day, then it gets recycled, and that recycled money then gets funneled back into the program to hopefully buy more wire.
Just a random question. When do you know to use aluminum wire versus copper wire?
Honestly, nowadays it just comes down to cost. But you have to look at the whole package. What are the aluminum compatible devices going to cost versus the normal standard devices? Can I get them in the device I need? So typically, most of the time, we're using aluminum only on service feeders.
What's a service feeder?
Where the power company comes into the meter, and then from there into your actual panel.
Oh,
okay. If you're going from a panel to a sub panel.
Got it.
You would use
okay.
or large appliances. You know, sometimes you'll find yourself running that for a stove or something when you start looking at what the cost is, one versus the other.
So that's the main reason. It's just cost that you're running aluminum wire versus copper.
That's the biggest reason. Copper is a little bit more conductive, but but the aluminum, they've came a long way from the aluminum that you heard about in the 70s and used back in the 70s to where we're at now. So a lot of the properties, heat dissipation and things like that, they're getting a lot better with the aluminum. So I wouldn't hesitate putting it in. It's just a fact of cost versus cost. It's not out there really as much. And there's other things you have to consider, goes deeper into it. But
Well, that was my next question was what about the
I'll be right back.
aluminum wire from the 70s that, caused all those problems and everything like that. So, I mean, I know the work hardening in aluminum back then was a problem. Is that still a concern now?
no, with the new, it's been since the early 90s, late 80s, they reformulated the alloy that they're using, making the aluminum, to where we don't have a lot of those issues that we had back in the 70s. So it doesn't oxidize the same way and things like that. So it's a lot safer wire. So the stuff that's in there from the 70s at this point, you typically need to either, they recommend rewiring depending on what you got, what you're dealing with, or using different devices, that they make specifically for, and different connectors specifically for connecting the aluminum to copper, and then you can switch over and use traditional devices.
Yeah, in the area where I'm at in Eastern Pennsylvania, I'm right on the New Jersey, Pennsylvania line. This was a big area where they were using the aluminum wire in the 70s when they were building these houses here. So when I was looking at a house, that was a concern of mine. It was, does the house have, copper wiring, because that was something that was a concern for me. And, now that's interesting to hear, especially since I talk about that in my electronics class, that now the alloys are different than they used to be, for today's usage.
Yeah, if you start reading into, just doing some basic searching, you can read about the differences in the aluminum pretty easily nowadays.
Okay, that's good to know. That's a good talking point, when I'm in class and we do talk about the aluminum wires and conductors. We do talk about that, maybe 15 minutes, if that, 10 minutes in class, for what I'm going over. But, on the smaller scale electronic projects like we're doing with the breadboards and stuff, you can use aluminum wire. It's not going to make a big deal, but, it's, I do talk about the 70s and how that was an issue.
And I use some aluminum in my classroom for our motor control wiring. We're using like 18 gauge wires to do some of our controls. So I was able to buy 2,500 feet of that a lot cheaper than I could buy it in copper. So for what we're doing and the ampacity you're running through there, it's perfectly safe. And the components are made for both in that aspect.
Now, how much Ohm's law and, some of the, I guess, the physics behind it do you go through when you are working with the kids in your little simulators? Like, say, for example, a load chart for, a traditional house. What do you do with the math side of that?
So we use NCCER curriculum. And with that curriculum, we have modules that do go into circuits and go into theory. So we hit it there. But I make sure that the kids understand how Ohm's law works and understand how to do those calculations. And then we bring that out into the real world. When you got things like, okay, we got this heater here. What's this thing going to pull? Well, I don't know. Okay, what voltage you're hooking it to? What's the resistance of it? And be able to work through some of that. We don't dive super deep into it just for the fact of our apprenticeship program is a 4-year program. Entry level is what they need. So my advisory committee stresses, teach them the basics, teach them how to be safe, how to work safe, and then share with them what they all can do in the trade and let us go on with the next level of training. If they're going to be an engineer, they'll learn about it at that time. If they're going to get into that advanced stuff, they'll have more than enough of it. So we just, because of my range of student from, they range across the board to kids that's never touched a tool to kids that grew up with shop classes still at their high schools and are proficient in using tools. So when you're working that whole gamut, you kind of got to limit how deep you can go into some of these things.
Yeah, I know with and I use this example in my classroom that I tell the kids, like, we're just going to touch on Ohm's law. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it. We'll do a couple simple calculations, but it's one of those words where this is hands-on physics where you're doing, and then the physics side of it is going to actually do all the theoretical and all the mathematical side of it. So I said, whether you have electronics your freshman year or you're having electronics after you've taken physics, it is going to end up being like, then things will start to click. And it is nice to see that. But I really don't drive too much of that home because you tend to lose them because it's now they think it's another math class and it's not an elective anymore. It's not fun.
Exactly. You got to keep it practical and keep it where it's going to make sense to them to use out in the area, out in the shop. We tie that in when we're dealing with our National Electric Code. We start doing the calculations for residential services and houses. So then that gets us back into need to know how many watts does this thing use, or how many amps is this going to pull? What size wire do we need? And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I remember we talked about that a while back. Now it makes sense. So we go through NCCER core, which kind of gives an overview of all the parts of the different trades. So first unit is basic safety. Then we go into construction math. Then we go into hand tools, power tools. And we get into things like communication skills and things of that nature that move on through that book. So it's general stuff you can use over any trade. And then we move into our electrical level 1, where we're just going through the basics of electrical safety, into circuits, into test equipment, into meters, into device boxes, raceways, and kind of break the entry level guy into the trade.
Oh, Timmy, you got anything else?
No.
Okay.
No, he answered the question. You only do as much math as you need to do, and then kind of let them go, because like I said, you don't want to drive them away.
Yeah. I like, what I find is either it's like kind of, I treat the kids like spies. They're on a need to know basis. Because if you give them too much information, you lose them. It's 100% right. You got to balance that line between practical, either it's a competitive project or it's some sort of project or it's something they need to know, but you let them know once they, like, I usually let them break stuff before I tell them the theory behind it. Because then they're not going to care about the theory until they, like, for instance, with bolts, to get them to stop stripping the bolts, what I do is I say, okay, I put a bolt in a vise with 2 nuts on it, and I say, hey, how many turns until this thing breaks? And hey, you got to write it down. So they write it down, 20, 65, 400 and whatever. And we do it. It's 3/4 of a turn, and the bolt will just snap right in half, or the nut will strip out. And so that's kind of like, I'm not going to tell them thread count or how to, or the theory behind metallurgy. They're not going to care until they break something, So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, some things you can do that with. Yeah. Some, in electronics class, you don't want to start blowing out breadboards and, things like that.
Right.
But, a couple LEDs here and there. Yeah, that's no problem. I don't have a problem blowing them up. But, after you blow up 3 or 4 LEDs, next thing you know, the room starts stinking.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can turn that into, you throw a problem at them and get them thinking about it, and then they'll start asking those questions, and then you turn those questions into that theory lesson that you were going to teach.
Totally.
Get that inquisitive environment going and let them lead it. So
Yeah.
I'll do that with some questions when we're doing, like I showed you those walls. I'll give them a project and I'll throw 3 or 4 questions at the bottom, and they either have to, it's stuff that we've either covered or stuff we're going to cover, or just something out of the blue. And they need to either go to Google, go to a friend, go to the code book, start trying to find it. And sometimes they can't. And I make it that way on purpose. So that way they got to say, hey, can you come over here and help me with this? Now you got that lead into, they're all ears because they want to know the answer to that question because now they're curious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seems like the times that I do that in class just never ever happens that easily. Jeff makes it sound so romantic.
Yeah. Well, we all know that, you know, like,
It's not
sure.
all
I mean,
perfect.
yeah, we're a bunch of shop guys, so we're like, yeah, this is how it goes. I mean, it's not exactly nothing. It's total chaos. I mean, it's high. I teach high school. It's like,
Yeah.
it's just a bunch of like swarming bees until you know, like, I don't even try and control it any longer. You're just swimming in it. You learn, finally you get your sea legs, and then you can swim with the teenagers, you know?
Yeah,
It's
it's organized chaos. It really is.
Totally.
It's organized chaos. It really is. And then if I
Yeah.
ever want to break, I just run it. I just kind of step in the doorway and look down the hallway and be like, "Yeah, we're good here."
Yeah, it's all good.
Today I had music on in my classroom today, and it was funny because I had it on pretty loud, and one of my coworkers who also teaches, you know, shop, he's like, the music from your classroom was so loud, we actually thought it was coming over the loudspeaker.
Oh, I keep a guitar handy every so often. You know, if there's ever a low point, just whip out the guitar and you know, put it on some heavy distortion, and it's an easy, impressive tool. You know. But Matt, did you get your questions answered with what you kind of were covering there?
Yeah. Definitely. I had to tend to some children.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, that's why I went back to you in case you wanted to follow up with anything.
No, I mean, and really what Jeff kind of said, you know, with his concerns or kind of my concerns, and, you know, hearing it from the professional electrician side, just, like I said, I'm going to talk to the people and get more information just because I don't know a lot about it. But, you know, I really, like I said, my biggest concern is future maintenance of it, really.
Oh, because we're talking about the low voltage before.
Yeah, and then as far as that sense thing goes, the plan is to use it to monitor, you know, energy usage with the idea of, you know, possibly taking that thing completely off the grid, or even using it as our, you know, temporary power source, even.
Yeah, that's
through
cool.
solar panels.
Remember the guy Sunlight Conversions who he's got half his house off the grid, and then he's got a whole bunch of others like
yeah. Is it his name Matt too?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he uses the sense. So if you ever wanted to get in touch with him, he's pretty good at it. He's not a professional electrician. He was a home automation installer, and then he switched careers into putting these battery backup systems in, and then he also converts vehicles. So he did his sailboat as well. Oh, this is a clip. Oh, that's cool that he's got it on here. So this is a clip from a class that we taught where we shorted out a copper wire versus a aluminum wire. And you can see that the copper wire took long, and then it lit my meter on fire because it touched the edge of the plastic. But I like this concept of breaking stuff to let people understand, you know, what could happen if you overpower a wire. I guess it's not really safe, but these were adults here in this class. This is like I shouldn't encourage anybody to do this.
That's really cool. I've never seen that.
Yeah, it's you got to do it. This was bare, and it was a battery that had like a ridiculous amount of power to it. This is at a company called Battery Hookup, and what they do is they'll recycle batteries. So they'll either break the batteries up into little pieces and sell you like, you know, smaller units, or sell it as the entire unit. Because a lot of the batteries have to get recycled. They are not bad. Maybe the company went out of business and they have to liquidate, or maybe like for instance, Bloomquist, if you're going to get a battery for your off-grid experiment, you could get it from Battery Hookup. You don't need a brand new battery, which is super expensive. And he'll send you a unit that's like already working or something like that. Especially if it's a school. The guy who owns his name's Tom. He's cool. He would do whatever. But yeah, and we also did a he does solar and stuff like that too. But we also did a aluminum wire, and the aluminum wire, boof, like just popped, like. But I'm sure you could do different amps, depends and whatnot. So now, Jeff, have you done any? Your cat is like,
Yeah, my cat.
that's amazing. Have you done any off-grid systems or any what they consider like a power wall, like a Tesla power wall?
We have not. That darn cat.
No,
But
it's fine.
that's
You
actually
have
one
like
of
a cat halo.
Yeah. At my last meeting, we just had an advisory meeting. We have a fall one and a spring one, and that was brought up at our fall meeting that we want to start looking at that. So, right on the front of our classroom there, we want to set up a home generator, and then potentially have some solar panels up on that little roof area that we can work off of.
It's funny. I could see something happening here. I think Jeff, Matt, and the other Matt need to have a conference because this is something happening. Matt wants to put his mobile classroom potentially, not that you have to get off the grid, but like a battery backup. And then you're headed down that road too, Jeff. And it just seems like this is like a major thing coming. Also, because I heard that it's not just the house or the end unit, but balancing the grid. So the power companies are going to buy these mega batteries. They're going to fill warehouses filled with batteries so that, when it comes time for, let's say, a blackout or a surge, they can handle it. Is that right?
Yeah. We work with a couple power companies in our area as well. And that's a big thing because now, or when you hit peak loads and things like that, they're firing up a gas turbine, either diesel or natural gas to help use that and help get them over that hump so they don't have to pay for a higher demand. So any way they can cut that demand down is going to end up saving them in the long run.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's a big thing coming. And it's not just Tesla. It's a lot of companies are doing this. And you can also do it yourself with the batteries. You could hook the whole thing up. Cool. I'll show you a battery hookup real quick. Let's see. And there's other companies too. This one's happened to be in close to Philly. And they have so many different types. I mean, you can buy an entire car battery, like the bottom of a Nissan Leaf or something. So here you go. You got modules. This is a 1.78 watt hour module. You've got individuals. You also different chemistries. So some of the chemistries are, actually this is a 2.3 volt. That's interesting. I didn't even know that was one of the options. 3.2 is your lithium iron phosphate, which is less likely to go on. It's almost impossible to get it on fire, but it doesn't have the same energy density. 3.7 is usually your lithium ion battery that has more density, but also can go on fire. So this guy's got everything. Everything military, BMW, Samsung, Tesla, whatever. And it looks like they got their own branded cells now too, which is interesting. And they got all the different sizes, 18650s all the way up to these larger sizes as well.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and and the guy's hard to get on the phone, but you can email them, and if you need something, just get in touch with me. I can help you get in touch with him. And I'm even wearing the shirt right now. See this? This
Nice.
is the evolution right here. It's funny, right? But yeah, they're cool. You don't have to do it through them, though. I mean, the idea is that this is on its way into the normal idea of like having a battery backup, and then also the grid's going to have a backup too. But yeah, like the batteries are dangerous. So what do you do? How do you charge times, whether sizing, like watt hours? Watt hours is kind of a hard concept for a lot of people. And then that one is like, how many watts do you have and how long do you need to use it for? So this is kind of watt hours. Anyway, thought I'd cover that a little. Cool. Yeah, I think this was good. This is a pretty good scenario. Did we miss anything? I'm trying to think of any other questions we had for you. Let's see.
So we are looking at getting into the electric vehicle charging as well a little bit to share that with our students, since, with all this stuff you're hearing with the government now, that's a big push. So we're trying to keep right on that path.
Yeah, it's funny because all you need really is the 220 line. Like your dryer line is the line you need for your car. But now you need it in your garage, not just at your dryer service. And then also, it's funny. It's kind of I think it's a misnomer, but they say you need a charger at your house, but the charger is in the car. What you really need is, I guess it's a box that says yes or no it's basically a contactor box in a way, right?
Yep. It basically just, they talk back and forth to determine how many amps is it going to allow through? What's the voltage of it? Is the system working right, compatible? And if everything says yes, then it says, okay, let's charge.
And that cuts down on that range anxiety that people have about buying an electric car. So for instance, people say like, oh, where am I going to find a charging station? How long can I go for? But what I say to them is that every morning your car is going to be full because you're going to put it in your garage or right outside your house and you already charged up. But I have a friend of mine that bought a Tesla and he did not install the charger. So every morning he has to go and run around looking for a supercharger station, and he's driving himself crazy. And I'm like, why are you doing that? And it's because right now him and his, I guess, fiance, they're looking for a place. So that he doesn't want to, he calls it investing. I'm like, well, you can take it with you. You just need to hook up to your dryer line. You can literally plug it in. You don't have to be hardwired. So anyway, these things are coming online. Also, the trucks. So it's not just the like private vehicles and cars and whatnot. Do they talk about? Does your advisory committee mention anything about vehicle to grid? Have you ever heard about this?
Yeah, it's just starting to get into the electric code on some of those changes, where you can use the vehicles as a storage system to, if we're talking the same thing here, use a vehicle as a charging system. It stores the energy, and then when you need it, you can dump it back in. So if the vehicles are just plugged in, sitting there, and the company's going to have a spike, they could draw off of that and use it. Or if you lose power, it could transfer, thinking about it like a generator, essentially. It's sitting there able to power up things when you need it.
So like imagine if you charge up your truck at the yard, wherever you store it, and then you drive to the job and you're on the job site and now you have got power. That's one way, I mean, unless you had a heavy load and you need to drive around, then you need that power for the vehicle. Cool. All right. Yeah, let me see. Anything else? I always like to show kind of a location, just to give it kind of like context. So here you are on the map.
Told you, Jeff.
But it's pretty cool. So you're by Columbus, and well, that's pretty far away. Dayton. Oh yeah. Now, isn't the Wright brothers from around here?
Dayton is where they got their start. Yep.
That's amazing. Is there like a landmark or a plaque or something?
There's a lot of that stuff around there. There's a field where they were practicing their planes at, flying them, Huffman
Oh,
Prairie.
really?
Their original bicycle shop down there where they were building the planes. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And
All right,
Dayton
cool.
has a nice Air Force museum, because of that history of flight. So the U.S. Air Force Museum's there.
Oh,
Well, worth
really?
the trip if you're out there. Yep.
No kidding. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like the Wright brothers. It's kind of a cool story. All right, so that's pretty cool.
I'll say we got a nice location. We got a college right next to us, Edison Community College, and we partner with them. So a lot of our kids can do College Credit Plus and walk right next door and take college classes without having to really go
right
anywhere.
here. All right, let's go to street level. Let's do this. Wow, it's nice. It's flat.
Yeah,
He's
we don't
gonna
have
find your car, Jeff.
Yeah, you ain't gonna find that.
Wait, where do I go? Oh, this is it,
So
right?
that's the driveway there to the left to go in. If you turn straight left right now on your screen, you'll eventually be able to see the school.
Oh, yeah. I can't go in. Google didn't go down there.
Have to do the satellite view.
Oh, yeah. All right, that's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, our
go
school
back.
was built in the late 70s, and we remodeled and added a section on in the early 2000s, and then did a whole remodel like around 2012 where we finished up.
Where's your solar panels?
Didn't get them talked into that yet there. We have some at our adult building on the top part of the screen.
Here?
Across the parking lot on the north side
Here?
there. The top of the screen.
Oh, here.
Yeah. And then to the right of that, you'll see we've got a little square at the corner of that lot. Little asphalt thing. There you go. So we've got a wind turbine there and a little solar grid. And that's where we do our high voltage stuff at as well.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's interesting. That's a good idea. I mean, it's great. You got all this room to do all this, experimentation. It's great. Examples and whatnot. And then you said the college. What's that?
I was going to say it works out great for us because we have a large campus. So it allows us a lot of opportunity to work with our maintenance personnel and actually bring real life stuff into the classroom.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good idea. I always thought the school was funny because it has so many opportunities for students to learn, but at the general education schools, they don't really integrate it that much. But at the trade school, you could. It's a great idea. I mean, why not do the projects that are needed for the maintenance department, and then you get job experience right there. You don't have to travel. It's all under one roof.
And it comes out of their budget.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, we're upgrading light fixtures today from fluorescent to LED in one of our hallways. Spent an hour this afternoon knocking some out.
Nice. Yeah, I wish they would do my shop because, oh my God, the lighting is like so dismal. We need a upgrade. And you said right here is a community college right next to that.
Yeah, so we've got a partnership with them, sidewalk that goes right between them, so we can walk right between.
Boom, right here.
We connect our parking lot with their parking lot, so our kids can drive right between them. It works out great.
That's awesome.
Kids can walk out of high school with an associate's degree and have best of both worlds. You get a trade and the college education then. So depending on the field, it works out perfect.
Yeah, this is great. You got a great campus here.
Yeah, so at that point, you're now into the college campus, but again, we're right next door, so we try to blend as much as we can. It's a great model.
Is pretty cool. There it is.
Yep. We've got some patronage programs with cosmetology and culinary. Run a full restaurant out of there.
Really?
Full salon. We got a daycare. Yeah.
I would just use all of that. I would get my hair cut there, get some food. That's great. It's awesome. This is great. I think you're doing a great job, and this situation's pretty cool. Can you imagine how many kids do you graduate per year?
I think it's around 400. We got usually around 1,000 kids. So they actually graduate through their homeschool, but we give them the 2-year certificate through us. So about half of them, 450, 500, somewhere in there, ends up, going on and getting their certificate through us each year.
And
we run juniors and seniors.
I see you got a collision repairs not that far away.
Yeah.
And, straight line trucks. Probably do some.
Ton of local businesses that we partner with and support us.
Yeah. That's awesome. Cool. All right. Well, this is pretty good. I think we got a good overview here. This is awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you joining the Shop Class podcast.
Well, thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah. And stay in touch. You can join anytime and looking to learn more about as you get into the battery backup systems. I'm curious because I know how like a DIY person does it, and I know how I would do it. It's kind of like that, but it would be interesting to know the proper way to do it from a teacher like you. you know?
I'm excited. I'm working on some partnerships now to try to get one of those in the school, and I think we can do some good things. So I'd be glad to share if I get to that or when we get to that point.
Yeah, we could do another tour if you want. That would be great because I think other teachers would love to hear about that. So we got the overview story, but if you had a specific topic you wanted to cover, maybe in the spring, that would be great.
Okay. Well, for sharing.
Do you have an Instagram account?
Unfortunately, I haven't broke into that world much yet. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook, and that's about it. I haven't dabbled in the other arts of social media.
Understandable. But I will tell you, the shop teachers do a really good job connecting on there.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Twitter is different. Twitter's like conversation with the world. That's not necessary for what we do. And then, Facebook is like friends and families and cat photos and stuff like that. But Instagram is like crafty. So it's really about people making stuff. I mean, I'm sure there's garbage on there.
Yeah.
I totally get it. But it's pretty good. Actually, this is how we got together was Instagram. I found Barbercheck on Instagram, and he was asking for donations to something for his shop. So I donated, and then we ended up talking on the phone. Then we ended up starting a podcast, and then that led to the meetings, which has led to this moment in time right here.
Very cool.
Yeah. And so we continue that.
And on Jeff on the Instagram too, like the builders community and trades community on Instagram is huge and tight and very supportive of trades teachers, and they like to find you and give you things and help out. And so which not that you're having any issues with that, but
no, I'll definitely have to look into it though.
Yeah.
I've used Facebook as, a lot of those connections I make I still use that because there's a lot of groups, electrical groups and code groups. And that's how I utilize that, sharing the knowledge that way. But I've never broken into Instagram. I guess I'm going to have to look into it.
Yeah. The group thing is probably good. Yeah. So this is one example. This is BS and Beer, Kansas City, and I shouldn't even speak on it. This is Matt's domain, but this is your building science guys getting together, and guys and girls, and from here, there's so many ways of connecting, and then they usually highlight people. So you got here's Matt right here. And then his Instagram, he'll give you like a date, almost daily update on like what they're doing. So, oh wow, Matt, I didn't even see this.
Yeah, by the end of this week, that picture will have trusses sitting on top of it.
I can't believe how fast you guys are going. They were pouring this foundation just a couple weeks ago. And what's cool about this is that these studs are not normal studs. These are a T stud, which is a kind of a, I guess in a way, a sponsored situation. Here's the T stud right here.
We're just starting to learn about those in our area. So they're just starting to work their way into Ohio where we're at.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're made up in Iowa. And I got connected with them and with us, building these higher performance houses and energy efficiency houses and stuff. They hooked us up, and Brian, the CEO, came out and talked to the kids and everything. And it was sweet. So yeah, so probably 80% of all of our framing, because we were using some of them on the interior walls, is because for running electrical wire, there's no drilling holes. You just send them through.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea. I didn't even think of that. Oh, here, this is from
There's Brian. Yep.
Right. The CEO showed up. Can you imagine meeting a CEO? And this is a publicly traded stock, right?
Not yet.
Oh, not yet. Okay.
Yeah, not
So
yet.
imagine you're a kid and your class got a visit from a CEO, and then you got in on the IPO status of that. I think there's something, I don't know, maybe I'm like I'm not a finance guy, but I want to point out something that I think when it comes to the trades, and especially tech, something that's overlooked is that if you're exposed to this stuff at a young age, you get a chance to put a little bit of money on it as a kid. So for instance, imagine if all of us here threw $100 on Apple in the 90s. Forget about it. You know what I'm saying? You're going to like 10 or 20 or 100x your money. And you're going to forget about it. And then one day you're going to have like $100,000 in stock. So I think that's overlooked when this, about the separation, when people, if he's not going to college, then he's got to do a trade, this old thing. And I'm just like, well, maybe just expose them to technology. And if they felt they got a side job, they're, like I worked at Dairy Queen, and then you work pumping gas, and I had extra money, and I didn't invest it. And then you end up spending it. So this is an amazing opportunity. These kids are meeting a CEO. I mean, it's really like a business class as well, not just a shop class. That's my rant. Sorry.
Well, and in that conversation, they asked them a lot of entrepreneurial questions. So it was a really good. I mean, it was one of those memorable teaching moments and times in class where it really wasn't about building a house anymore. It was just about everything, and it was cool.
That is cool.
And he answered every question. What kind of grades he got in high school? What his education level was? All that kind of stuff. Anything they asked, he answered it. But yeah, he's the inventor and the CEO of the company.
Cool.
I think it's the U.S. Engineered Wood is the actual company title.
Okay. And then this part, I'm sure everybody in here thinks like, oh, no big deal. But for me, this blows my mind. To watch this happen, this is literally just digging a hole, and then and a couple weeks later, you got this going on. I'm like amazed, and this is a high school class. I'm like blown away, So it's very inspiring, watching the Instagram, like watching the development, so you could catch this up. Then there's also, those are like what they call a post. Then there's these stories, and we shared stuff about you, and it's like daily little 15-second stuff that goes away after 24 hours. So pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, check it out. And then, like this, here's an example. If I draw something or I build something, I'll share it with what we're doing, and kind of hopefully it'll give some examples of, oh, look there's Timmy. We were trying to recruit shop teachers. Timmy's got the shop teacher glasses on. You can't beat that.
Classic.
Right. With the little wings on the side.
That's right, baby. Those are my yearbook photo glasses.
That's awesome. All right, well, cool. So, all right, we'll end it right here, and we usually end it and hang around for a little bit. All right, thanks a lot, Jeff. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch up with you soon. Shop Class Podcast, Wednesday nights. Check it out. And we'll stop the recording.